Can I just put this?
Yeah, she
Somewhere?
needs. Yeah. Okay. You want some water?
No, I'm good, thanks. এগুলো সব দেখা যাচ্ছে।
No. So you want to go to the beginning of your slideshow? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how
let's do that.
But why is all this showing? Even my Zoom is showing.
Arnab, can you come here and
I don't. The Zoom should not be.
We'll do this later. We'll do this.
No, but first let her
stop sharing. So your is there. Now let me pin this spotlight for everybody. Okay, go ahead. We'll hide the controls later on your slide sharing. I'll hide floating.
No, but why didn't you share her screen already?
Why? Because then you'll be in such a small window in the
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Yes. Go ahead. We'll share it later. Go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and it's okay. I can go back. So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this very special Thursday colloquium. And we are very pleased to have Moushumi Bhowmik with us today at the Bhowmik Center. As you all know that she's visiting TIFR this week, and there are a number of programs that are lined up. She is conducting a workshop, a panel discussion, and a concert also. This morning she had a session at TIFR, and now she's here. And we first of all thank her very much for making time to visit us here at HBCSE. We would have loved a longer interaction, but I think even this is great. So welcome. Now, Moushumi Bhowmik would not need any introduction in front of a Bengali audience, but since we are in a different corner of our vast country, so let me say a few words to introduce today's speaker. So, Moushumi was born in a family in North Bengal that had its roots in East Bengal, and she grew up in Shillong and later went to Santiniketan for her studies. She did her graduation and post-graduation in English from the Department of English in Jadavpur University. And recently she has submitted her thesis, a doctoral thesis on the wax cylinder recordings of Arnold Bake from Bengal at Jadavpur University, Kolkata. And to most of us, Moushumi is primarily a singer par excellence. And she's a singer of eminence. She sings her own songs, which she writes and composes herself, and also Bengali folk songs. Her songs deal with the struggles of the common people, both in their daily mundane life as well as the emotional strife within, and reflect a very deep empathy especially for the not so fortunate among us. That is the hallmark of her music. And for people of my generation, she was among a galaxy of stars of singers who broke new ground in Bengal in the decade of 1990s and left a very deep impression on many of us. So we actually grew up with her songs and songs of some other singers of that same time. And apart from her achievements in writing and performing music, she's a multifaceted personality. She has an illustrious career as a researcher, as an archivist, as a writer and editor. She collaborates with artists and scholars across disciplines and languages. Moushumi is the primary caregiver or caretaker, you may say, of the traveling archive, field recordings and field notes from Bengal, co-created with sound recordist Sukanta Majumdar. And tomorrow in the Asset Colloquium at TIFR, she will be talking about her story of this archive, how we made it. And she has published numerous essays in both Bengali and English journals. She is based in Kolkata but travels widely between India, Bangladesh and the UK. And her work is largely centered on the question of what and where home is. And she's deeply attached to Bangladesh, which has been an abiding interest in her life, I think, and her concert theme is also this year for Bangladesh. And she composed music for the Bengali movie Matir Moyna, The Clay Bird, directed by Tarek Mashood, which won the Critics' Prize at Cannes Music Festival in 2002 and the Best Music at Kara Film Festival, Karachi in 2003. And I now invite Moushumi to deliver her talk today on what the road has been teaching me. And I'm told that she spontaneously breaks into singing during her talks, and we expect the same today, that she will enchant us with her wonderful music. Thank you.
Slide share right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much for inviting me here. It's a real privilege to be in the midst of people who are so intellectually engaged and in disciplines which are quite removed from mine, I imagine. But then maybe not so removed, and because finally we are all engaging with life and the universe in different ways. And it's really, it's very special for me to have come to Bombay at this time for many reasons. I began to interact with Bhashwati, who's sitting here, and Jaikumar Radhakrishnan in November last year. And then it just took all this time, almost 6 months, for us to arrive at this. Meanwhile, a lot has happened to our social and political and personal lives. So in a way, just being by the sea is healing for me. And I think it's really fortunate that I could be here at this time. So I go into such details to say all this because what I'll be talking about is when I say what the road has been teaching me. Because I think the primary thing that the road teaches, if we want to listen, is if it can teach us some amount of empathy and compassion, then that is the best lesson that we can have from the road. And I'd really like to talk today about empathy and compassion. So here I'll start by showing you a little slide of a man. This is, you can see the angle, it's a top angle, so I'm on the 3rd floor of the building, and this is the street below my house in Calcutta. And his name is Bhaktadash. He's a singer. And Bhaktadash has been coming to my street. I have known him from 2009. So the first time we recorded him for the Traveling Archive, which is a sort of shared platform of listening to music and songs and stories from across Bengal and from other places. And not just our research, it also goes into bringing in the research of other people. So it becomes a shared platform that way too, where we bring in other researchers into our listening experience. So Bhaktadash would come into the street, and he would come, I live in a blind lane. So he would, and in South Calcutta, it is very close to Jadavpur University where I live. So he would come into the street, and you would hear him long before you saw him, because such was the power of his voice that you could hear him, and his cry, you heard him. So the road has also taught me to actually some amount of discernment it's given me. So I have learned to also be able to recognize some of the sounds. Because listening is, just because we have a pair of ears doesn't mean listening is a given. Listening is something that we also need to learn. We need to teach ourselves how to listen. So I think what the road has been teaching me is something of the art and craft of listening and the politics of listening. So Bhaktadash, when he would come into the street, kind of knew who from his sound, because I've traveled, and if you travel, you begin to hear the sounds of other people, the vastness of, and the variety of sounds. You don't. If you live in a small confined world, then you do not learn to listen to the range of sounds that encapsulate you, that surround you. You don't get to listen to them. So Bhaktadash used to come, and I knew from his sound that this was a man, and he carried that history of his journey in his voice. You can hear that. So I knew from listening to him that this man comes from East Bengal. If not him himself, but maybe his parents. They're generous. So you can hear that migration in his voice. You can hear from it, you don't have to hear, it's not because you hear the dialect. It's just in the sound. It's in the quality of the sound, in the projection of the voice that you hear that. And you would hear it only if you know that sound. So because you know that sound, and here I suppose I'm telling you things that are very similar to the way you experience things in your research. That you recognize something, a phenomenon, you recognize it only when you have actually, there's a preparation that goes behind that recognition. And this is a preparation that has gone before I could recognize who Bhaktadash was. So Bhaktadash comes in, and so he would come in, and this is a recording, the recording that I am going to play now is from 2019, and this is the last time that I heard him. So he would come to the street, and then by now we've become friends. So he comes to the bottom of my house and then sort of starts singing, and he knows that I'm going to appear at I'll come into the balcony, and then we'll talk. I might not even go down. Sometimes he would come upstairs, and then in the early days, we would even record him. But then later what happened was he will come, I'll come out, and the money is not the big thing, but he'll also bring me little presents. So he brings me he's been to Assam on some pilgrimage, and so he'll bring me some rudraksha, or some flowers, and he'd say, "Ma, this is for you." So he that's how he would talk. So Bhaktadash, but in the way I've seen him over the last over 10 years, I'm talking about 10 years now. So 10 years that I've seen him. I've seen him also aging. I've also seen him in a state of loss of some kind. And I think the loss that I've seen him in his appearance, in his voice, in the way he tunes his instrument, I've seen it all. And I've heard it as well. And in that, I've actually seen a time that is going through loss. You see, it's not just the story of Bhaktadash that I hear when I see him going through these 9 years. It is also him, and he becomes symbolic of his time. So this song, this is very rough, and it's not very pleasant to listen to. So if I play it. Shall I stop? Should I stop? You can't hear? On Zoom? It's not on Zoom?
Okay, it's on, yeah.
Right? Shall I play again?
No, it's fine, it's fine. That is your mic.
Sorry.
Very faintly.
Very faint. So you can, yeah, let's try. Let's just try.
I'll increase the volume then.
No. I think that's not the. Let's do one more try. Let's mute your mic and use that and see if it works.
Where's my mic?
That's certainly not.
No, that's okay.
Share screen again. So I'm muting this. Muted.
So then where is the echo? There's some other mic.
This is muted.
Some other microphone.
I think I'm muted.
Zoom 5 mic. I know.
Shall we try?
Let's hide this.
It's coming? Okay. Completely out of tune. He's completely out of tune. His whole presence is completely out of tune, actually. And he can't tune himself now. You can see that. And over the years, he's kind of lost something. He's unable to tune himself. And he's a musician, and he's a musician, a very good one. So how come this has happened? So Bhaktadash, you see, and he's so haggard. You can see how haggard he is. You know, his clothes, he's unwashed. He wouldn't be like this. He'd come oiled properly. And so I'll just... What happens now? Now, I can't admit anybody, so I'm just... Oh, what's going on? Okay, so this was, about 5 years ago, and you can see him here, and you'll see the difference. You'll hear the difference. So we've been recording him over this whole entire period. So you see him, you can see the difference. And it's 5 years, and you can see how neat he is and how beautifully he's singing. And his instrument is in complete, it's in tune, and he knows what he's doing. There, he doesn't seem to have much control over what he's doing. And then, this was him when he came to my house for the first time. And you see, this is what's happened. So I've gone back, actually. I've gone back from what he became to what he was. But if I now go back, go forward, the point is that from 2019, I've not seen him. And he has not come. So then we had the lockdown. Then the streets, and I would miss him, and I was hoping that he would, after the lockdown, because the trains, he comes by the train, so he comes from a border place. So I was hoping that he would come back, because if he got the first chance, he would come back. And then when the streets started filling up again, and people started to move along the streets, and people started to come into the neighborhood, Bhaktadas did not come. And I waited for him, and I waited for him. And I thought he would come, but he did not come. So in his absence, I know, I kind of know what has happened. But I can't be sure, because I don't have an address for him. So I'll probably now, maybe at some point, I'll actually take all these various recordings with me, and I'll go on the train, and I'll go looking for him. Probably not find him, but he came from the road, but he came to my home, So this talk, I want to actually focus on this road, the road in front of my house. So the road, as it changed, and the sound of the road, and how it actually talks about not just the seasons, but about history, about distress of people, about absences, and about presence. How it does so many things. And how we learn to listen to this road. I might be the only person on the street actually listening to it so keenly, so closely. But I'm listening to the road right in front of my house, because I have listened to other roads. The lessons that I drew from my travels along other roads, that's what I bring to my home. And therefore, I listen to the road right in front of my home with a certain acuteness, a certain keenness, and with a certain ear for detail, hearing and missing certain sounds. So Bhaktadas did not come back. But in this time, after the lockdown, so we started to have all kinds of sounds coming in. One of the things that we kept hearing was the call of vendors. So, and I'm sure in every city this happened, the streets filled up with the, the vegetable seller and the fruit seller and the fish seller, egg seller, all sorts of things people were bringing to our homes because we were not leaving. So people were bringing to our homes all sorts of things. So in the middle of all this man, when nobody is leaving the house, no one can leave the house, I hear this cry. So he's the umbrella repairer. Chata, he's come to repair. Sharabin Chata, he's saying. So the irony is that nobody can leave the house. It doesn't matter whether it rains or there is sun or, we don't need the umbrella. But this is the only skill this man has. And in some ways, this is the only thing he's able to do. So what will he do now? So he brings his cry to the street and nobody comes out. No one comes out with their umbrellas or with their bags, to get their zips repaired or whatever. That's what he's able to do. So these cries, for me, then become because during the lockdown, what happened was that we lost so much of our bearings. And so many people lost, their ways of supporting themselves, their economic base. And it became a crisis of food. It became a crisis of, and then over that we had the cyclones. So all of these things that happened, for me, these cries, the man is crying for, Shobji, 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 or he's saying Sharabin Chata, or he's saying Mach nebe mach, or Deem ache, Hashid Deem, Murgid Deem. And I can almost hear the kind of cries that we heard, we know that the streets filled up with during the time of the famine in 1943. So there used to be people coming on the streets, hungry people, and they came in hordes they came, and they would cry for rice, they would cry for actually pan ke ki bole pan? Yeah, for starch. So they would cry for starch even, so they came with these emaciated bodies, almost like skeletons walking along the street, and they would cry. So when there was this song by Horipodo Kushari from 1943, and it was a famine song, and this is just before partition. So, and the famine played a big role also in partition, I think, because people were so completely disenchanted with the way things were. And they realized that nobody cared for them. The zamindars didn't care for them. And they hoped, and because the large numbers of people, the peasantry were largely Muslim, and they felt that, let down by the masters, those who could have supported them. So this was a song which went. It's an IPTA song. It's an Indian People's Theatre Association song. So.
Do you need the black screen?
No, I don't, but I would have something later to show.
Go back to it, because otherwise you're a very small file for people who are watching.
No. Let's go. Yes, so stop share.
We'll stop share. Yeah. And we'll come back to it later.
Okay. You're all right now?
Yeah.
So the song went like this. that it's the time, in this time of death, why are we dividing ourselves? Why are we sort of, fighting amongst ourselves? Because, and Shonar Bangla holo shashan, so Golden Bengal is turning into a burning ghat. So, মরণ শিয়ারে দলাদলি করে কেমনে বাঁচিবি বল সোনার বাংলা হলো শ্মশান একসাথে সব চল সোনার বাংলা হলো শ্মশান গায়ের চাষি পাচু রহমন শুয়ে ওইখানে কাটে না তো ধান মাঝিরা দেয় না খেয়া দাঁড়ে টান so nothing is moving. So there the Majhi is, there's no boat that is on the waters, there's no plow in the fields, there's nobody, there's nothing that is possible because it's only death all around. Majhira deয় না খেয়া দাঁড়ে টান কি হলো তাদের বল সোনার বাংলা হলো শ্মশান. And then the last verse goes, সময় থাকিতে হও সাবধান, so be careful. As long as there is some time, in our hands. সময় থাকিতে হও সাবধান দুর্ভিক্ষ ভীষণ দুর্ভিক্ষ আবার, so famine is coming again. দুর্ভিক্ষ আবার আসিছে ভীষণ দুয়ারে কান্না মা মা গো মা একটু ফ্যান. So somebody comes to your door and cries, Ma, give me a little starch, give me a little pan. So that you won't be able to bear that sound. So be careful. Stop fighting amongst yourselves. And this is obviously the time when the Hindus and Muslims are fighting amongst themselves. We are heading towards partition. And this is when the song comes to us. Somehow when I hear this chata cry, or when I hear the cry of the vegetable seller, they're not crying for rice, they're not crying for starch anymore. But if we don't buy their products, if we don't buy their wares, then they're going to be starving in quite the same way. Things have changed and haven't changed so much either. So this is something that I think it's not just because I'm a singer, but I think it's just life that has taught me to try and listen to these things in a certain way and then bring that into my work. So there was, this was the, can I go back to sharing? So, no, I'll go to the next one.
How do you switch between the tabs?
Which tabs?
Just is there a way to look at all the other programs?
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so the Zoom.
Zoom is down there. So should I just do share screen?
Share screen again.
Okay.
This one.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are the ways that I have been trying to teach myself to listen. I'm not doing it on my own. I'm not doing something very unique, but I'm also learning from my teachers. And one of them is someone called Peter Cusack, whom I met in 2006. He calls himself a sonic journalist. And Peter is a lot older than us. He lives in Berlin now. He is British, but he lives in Berlin now. And he has a project which is called the Favorite Sounds Project. So he maps places by collecting, by learning about the favorite sounds of the people of that place. So he records those sounds. He asks someone. So he might ask you, what is your favorite sound of this place? And you might tell about a bell or the canteen or somebody or the clank of the utensils. You might say, that is my favorite sound. So he'll record that. And then he'll put it on this site, on his map. And that becomes the map of this place. Through sound, you begin to listen to the place. So Peter does these things, and then he also does. This he's been working on sounds from dangerous places. That's one of his other projects, and he went to Chernobyl, and I thought this was quite. It makes sense for us to talk about such places now. So he worked in Ukraine, he worked in the Chernobyl exclusion zone, and in the Caspian oil fields in Azerbaijan. In that entire region he's worked, and he's actually gone to these places where there have been environmental or industrial disasters. And what happens to the place? How does that place change, and how does it change sonically? So he says that dangerous places can be both sonically and visually compelling, even beautiful and atmospheric. There is often an extreme dichotomy between an aesthetic response and knowledge of the danger, whether it is pollution, social injustice, military, or geopolitical. The project asks, what can we learn by listening to the sounds of dangerous places? So I'll play you a recording. This is a recording of the cuckoo. It's called The Cuckoo and the Radiometer. So this is a recording that was made in Chernobyl. Because I've been... this is what happens is that because even after Chernobyl has happened, there's still radiation there. So if you go about with a radiometer, it beeps. And you can read the level of radiation. But at the same time, there are certain birds that have left this place and certain birds which have come back, you see, because they're of the desertion of the place. So the cuckoo has come back and is actually found its home in the nests that other birds have left. So the ground has been taken over by other vegetation. So he says about this piece, he says, besides the Ferris wheel, he also recorded the Ferris wheel, the handheld radiometer bleeps at around 250, what do you say? ROEN. Okay, whatever, you know it. Higher than normal. And a cuckoo calls in the background. It is an ironic juxtaposition of sounds as both allude to sudden eviction. Cuckoos pyrate other birds' nests, ejecting the eggs and chicks, and radiation forces the evacuation of all the Pripyat residents. In Ukrainian folklore, the cuckoo's call counts the years of one's life. So this is Peter's report. that's how the recording goes. And so he just walks around the place and he records. But this little recording, it tells such a deep and such a poignant story about not just about Peter's art practice, but about this time. And so yeah.
Somebody come with the study what type of radiation it is? Was it?
Well, that I can't tell you. That but
If
that.
it is the radiation, they are radioactive or just something, X-ray or gamma ray.
Yeah, I think there are more details. I think there are details there.
What are there? But if the radiation there, some research or some study must have done so that people will not go there.
People do. Anyway, I think that's not very.
I think we can find answers to that here, but we'll go to that a little later. Okay. I think he knows more than me, and so he's written something about that, but I couldn't tell. So there is this very beautiful. The reason why I try to listen in this particular way is also because of one of the other teachers, another teacher of mine, whom I don't know personally, but whose writing I really love to read. He is Les Bach. He's a sociologist, and he talks about sociological listening. He writes about what does it mean to listen, and he says that, deep and immersed listening, but when you listen to something, but how do you tell that story, what you've listened to? How do you tell the story of what you've heard? And there, imagination plays a role. So you not only listen, but it is about thick descriptions produced through deep sociological listening are ones that theorize as they describe and describe as they theorize. This is what he says. And he says this, he gives a very interesting example. Listening is not necessarily just only through our ears, because we listen also through what we see. So he talks about this image in this book. As you can see, we can again stop sharing, I think. And so this image is this woman, you can see that she has a score written here of a song. So she's tattooed, she's got a score written there. And there is a story of this woman. Why was this photographed? So there is no sound, but you can listen to the sound if you know the story of this woman. So her name is Donna. So Donna lives in West Norwood, South London, and she had the tattoo done to commemorate her goddaughter, Lyric, who died of brain cancer at Christmas in 1997. Donna kept a vigil beside Lyric's bed along the baby's parents. "Isn't she lovely?" was a lullaby that they had sung to Lyric before her illness, and they also comforted her with it in hospital. Donna chose to have the tattoo on the inside of her arms because that is the portrait she turns the notes inside of her arms, because that is where she held Lyric. So she held Lyric like that, and that's why she's got the tattoo done there. That is where she held Lyric before she died. "I guess I hug my tattoos," she says. She said, in the portrait, she turns the notes and melody outward and shows them to us. The tattooist's needle perforated inside and out. This is the thick description, imaginative telling of the story. The tattooist's needle perforated inside and out, And the price of these indelible lines was a physical pain that is befitting, given the grief and loss that inspired them. Donna's look contains a strong presence. It is both frail and inviolable. So, this is again an image that we learn to listen to, and this is also the kind of thing that I've been trying to teach myself as I go along the road. Because there is this very beautiful story where lost the page. So there is this is a book, If Nobody Speaks of Remarkable Things. So what are the remarkable things? Is Bhaktadash a remarkable thing? I mean, it is really up to us to consider what is remarkable and what is not remarkable. It is really to us to think what is remarkable. So just a cuckoo's call, just a radio meter bleeping becomes a remarkable thing. And so in this story, there is a man who tried to save his wife when she caught fire, and so his hands are ruined. He couldn't save her. They have a daughter. So he's telling his daughter. He says, "My daughter," and all the love he has is wrapped up in the tone of his voice when he says those two words. He says, "My daughter, you must look with both your eyes and listen with both your ears." He says, "This is a very big world, and there are many, many things you could miss if you are not careful." He says, "There are remarkable things all the time, right in front of us, but our eyes have like the clouds over the sun, and our lives are paler and poorer if we do not see them for what they are." He says, if nobody speaks of remarkable things, how can they be called remarkable? So this is something that I think we could try and go back with, is if we don't talk about remarkable things, then none of us talk about these remarkable things, then they are remarkable, but we have to make them remarkable by talking about them. So I think I'll just end by playing another recording to you. It's from it's okay. So this is an interesting thing. This is a place that I'd been to. It's in Wales, and there was a dam here. Again, something that speaks to us. It doesn't. You cannot hear the sound, but it's speaking to us. So this is called Cofioch Trwerin. That's the pronunciation. Cofioch Trwerin. So it means I remember Trwerin. Trwerin was this place, and there was a dam that was built in 1957, and it drowned the entire place, and it also drowned the chapel, and it drowned everything. And so we went, so on the walls, this is a battle between England and Wales, and so this became a moment for Welsh nationalism. So Cofioch Trwerin became a slogan for them. And when they said Cofioch Trwerin, what were they saying? Remember Trwerin. Remember what? Remember that there was a place called Trwerin. Remember that this place was drowned because people built a dam. Remember that the dam was unnecessary. Remember that there was a chapel, and in which was buried the dead. And remember that this dam actually drowned also the dead. So the myth goes like this, that when the water kind of dries up, you can see the spire of the church. But it might or might not be true. But the myth is this, that because the church symbolizes also the dead, so you can actually see the dead when the water dries up. So, and these are two, and I found this, I thought this image of the dead bird, that I was there with a friend, she's a poet, and we were recording sounds of water. And I thought that this image of the dead bird was kind of, it symbolized this whole slogan of Koviok Twerin. And I think that is what these remarkable things that we see, and the remarkable things that are all around us, but we talk about them. By talking about them, they become remarkable. And we learn our lessons from them. So when we say Koviok Twerin, or when we hear the cry of the vendor on the street, and or when we do not hear the call of Bhaktadash, we are actually commenting on remarkable things, I think. That's all. So we can stop the share.
So I think people can ask questions, and I don't need to coordinate anything, but just ask. Yeah, sure.
As you mentioned that we have to share remarkable memories, but sometimes that remarkable memories for as an individual, sometimes that are sad or that hurt, and we don't know that whether when you are sharing such type of memories, other people or other listener would like or not, or sometimes what happens. Let me give you an example. In my family also, when I am sharing something with my daughter, they just said that that was your past, that was your time, whatever you face. We don't have any problem. Why are we supposed to learn from that things? So, or suffer from that things. So, in that cases, what as an individual, which thing you would like to suggest that whether we supposed to share such type of remarkable memories or not, and the things which you discussed or showed, because I came from a rural background, very common things I experienced in my life. I don't know how to share, and what are the implications in teaching learning process where we are working in school education.
Yeah.
In that case.
So I could answer this by actually telling you about a workshop that I did recently. I was in Dubai, and I was with a group of artists, and this was part of an exhibition. So the traveling archive was our project was part of this exhibition, and so this project was it had traveled from Berlin to Dubai, and it was showing there, and so there was a workshop that I conducted, and it was called The Sounds of Memory. And we were 15 to 20, 15, 16 of us. And the idea was that we would talk about home. Because everybody came from a different place. All of us artists or scholars or people, even people who live there. Dubai is such a transient place, people come and go. And so there were all these people. So there was a range of people. So there was a scholar from Princeton. There was the man who looks after the gallery. So that kind of, the woman who serves tea. So that kind of range of people participated in the workshop. And we were all talking about things which seemed remarkable to us as individuals. But there was a universality to it. When we talked about these things, I was telling my story, you were telling yours, but there was something which connected us. And the connection was so extraordinary that day. And there was someone from Syria talking, and so the story became not just about the Syrian artist's father's death, but it became also about war and displacement. So there was this Moroccan girl who came, and she lives in Italy now. She lives in Milan. And she was talking about her father and how he, as a migrant laborer, he worked in Italy and would come home. And the day he came home, how the songs that he played on the radio and how they waited for that sound. There's a very personal story that she was a very young girl. She would be in her 20s. So between her and me, there's a 30-year age gap. But there were people also older than me. But we all talked, and so we were talking about things from the past which the young should not have been interested in, but they were interested. And when we shared our story, the young were interested. When the young shared their story, we were interested. So somehow we sort of built that confidence and that shared space amongst ourselves where we could share and talk about not just our individual remarkable things, but something far bigger. And we were talking about this time, we were talking about wars and displacement and, and home and memories. So I think with students, um, especially I would say it really works if they can talk about things they remember and things which, and if you tell them about things that you remember and things which moved you or hurt you. With our children, the children always have that kind of a thing with us. They're very dismissive of us. So, but maybe someone else's child might not be dismissive of you. So, forget our children. Let them be. I'd
I
say.
think the point, yeah, I think just one addition. How we communicate, that is also important. The way how we shared our experiences,
Yeah,
that is also important. The
of
way
course.
now you explain, it's really thrilling. But I don't know, sometimes
No, but I think, I won't agree with you here because I think we are all actually unique storytellers. But we don't realize that. We all have our stories to tell, and we can tell our own stories only in the way that we know the story. Firstly, I think the task of the listener is very important, that we must also be willing to listen. And if we are willing to listen, then I think the stories that your story, and if I'm willing to, you might have your hesitation. You might be fumbling for words. So what? Let me still listen to you because you will tell your story in a way that I do not know. I'm going to be listening to sounds that are very unique to you, and I can hear now even in the way you're talking. I mean, I am talking in a particular way. I come from, and I'm carrying my own journey with me in my voice. So I formulate what I say, my speech, my diction, my pronunciation, everything is sort of, it's processed in a certain way. You come from another space and you bring, and the richness of it, I do not have it. You have it, and it's unique to you. So I think we all should, it's not at all a question of who is a better storyteller. We're all actually, if given the chance, we all could break into story and song, all of us. And we all have our, I think, very unique stories to tell and listen to.
I have, so, but still, yeah, okay, go ahead, but we should repeat the question. Maybe we should this mic is more sensitive to the audience. Yeah. Should I just wait?
Just wait. Just wait.
Let's just mute that, turn this on, and then we can. So you say that it's in all of us.
some people have an aptitude or an inclination that some are better storytellers, some are better listeners. That's not my question. My question is are there ways to improve this? Like, can one make an effort? For example, in education, we often does is that we study experts and identify what are the implicit things, try to make it explicit part of make it part of instruction. So, can there be a method, or can there be a can this be turned into something teachable so that, or do you think that that's it? I hope you got it.
I got it, yeah, but I don't know if I know the answer because the point is that how do you? I mean, for me, it's very difficult because certain things. I mean, it's like there's a Leonard Cohen song, which when I was born this way, I had no choice. So, I mean, the point is this, that I learned to talk or sing or be in a certain way, and all of it is not really something that I trained myself to become. But there are also certain things that are also natural to us. So it's very difficult to say how do we arrive, how do we train ourselves to become better storytellers, how to become better communicators. I'm sure there are ways, and those who work in communication know about these things. But I think one thing that definitely works is when we listen to others. It's through our listening that we learn to also communicate. Because if we listen to others, then we know how that person is communicating. And we learn to listen to that person and then we respond. I think listening is very important, something that we don't do often. Because we are we're so lost in ourselves and so full of ourselves. And we think that our voice is so supremely important that we don't listen to others. And this is a very political thing that I'm saying. I mean, our Prime Minister doesn't listen to others. So yeah, people don't listen, people don't. Ministers don't listen to others, leaders don't listen to others. Often teachers don't listen to students. And that's something that as teachers, it's really important, I think, that we listen to others. And
I think, is it your personal experience or you are saying that it is a universal character of everybody? I am not agree with you.
Like universal character of everybody.
Listening. See, apart from the West Bengal, there are people in Maharashtra also. In Maharashtra also, many singers are there, even from the street.
Yeah.
Do you know Kaduvai Kharat?
No, I don't.
One lady, Kaduvai Kharat, she is a street singer in Aurangabad. But now, people in India, in Maharashtra, they made her a hero, in a singer. And she is singing in the studio, in various Z TV and big studios and all. And she has produced many CDs and many musics. She was also street, and many people, even on WhatsApp also we see that many street singers they have come up. It is only because of the listener that they knew the true value of that singer. That is why they brought them up.
No, I don't think there's no contradiction between what you're saying and what I'm saying. I don't think there is any contradiction at all. What I'm saying is about the question of empathy and compassion with which we listen to, with which I will listen to you and you will listen to me. I'm not universalizing anything, but what I'm trying to say is we as humans tend to be really very full of ourselves. We are so full of ego and we tend to be very full of ourselves.
But in professional life, nobody will show you their own true face. Why should they will show uh, hidden part is on their own.
I don't know.
People, it is a bad assumption that everything what we see on the faces of the people is a good thing or has a good character or has a good background. It is not like that. If you really want to study or read the faces of any person, you have to go to the root of and then find out.
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
what the real
That's
character
certainly
is, what
true.
the real personality of that person.
Yes, but that's
People are not expressive in true sense at all and showing also.
Yeah, please.
So I don't have any question. So I just have an observation which I have observed. So when I was like up to my undergrad level, I remember hawkers they shout, for like Father's Day or whatever. In that I come from Assam.
uh-huh.
But now recently when I went back, I have seen the hawkers have also started using technology.
Yeah.
So they have those recorded cassettes where the recorded cassettes keep that, buy this, buy that, buy this.
Everything
So
for
they
30 rupees. Yeah.
400 rupees. So they no more shout like the usual hawkers which I used to see in my, or I used to hear in my childhood. So even the children from nowadays, so when I was a child, I used to imitate the hawkers, So now the children, they imitate those recorded cassettes. So this is just a
Yeah, but it hasn't entirely replaced, at least not in Bengal, but because both, it's not like the sabzi wala will come and shout his,
There are some hawkers.
So, but there's this thing also that has started. So they play some music, and then they might also they might have some recorded music, and then they'll get somebody like a radio voice to say, what is there, and then they say things like in Bengal they say, "Oh, Bodhi, এসে একবার দেখে যান না." So stuff like that, So কোনো দরদাম হবে না, so you cannot haggle, and so there is why don't you just come and take a look? কোনো পয়সা দিতে হবে না দেখার জন্য. So those kinds of things are also sort of, that's part of the recorded track. So they do play those recorded. But it's not all about the recorded track. There are also these real people who are coming to the street and singing and selling their things. And of course, the other thing, technology has entered in a different kind of way. So the people when they ask to buy old things, now they'll say laptop, they'll say what they say, UPS, then they'll say so old mobile phones. So now they ask for those things. So earlier the guy who would ask for newspaper. In fact, the other thing is that newspaper, the man who used to buy newspaper, there's no newspaper to sell anymore. Hardly, it's not like the same as before where in every household people had the newspaper, and so end of the month they sold newspaper. So that has also changed.
There's a question from Zoom ready? Okay, you have a question.
So, do you not think that, these days we are living in a society and a world which is extremely fast moving, and both the education as well as anything which follows education, let's say profession, is so fast moving and it expects fast reaction from anybody and everybody. And that is completely like a kind of contraindication for developing empathy or any kind of finer sense towards listening or observing things. So, for example, when I used to go to a teacher, he used to tell me for drawing that you first look at the thing that you are trying to draw, look at it for how many, whatever time that you want to do, and then start drawing. But now what happens is that, if the children are first going to a school, they are supposed to draw something within half an hour or 1 hour. So this time management thing, it is going to the kids from the very beginning, and that's a kind of, I'm just trying to say that probably that is not helping us to develop this kind of inner empathy for
Of course.
we see on.
But if you recognize this as a problem, then you do something about it. So if you identify the problem, then in your work, in your professional life, in your interaction with students, in your interaction with young people, you do something about it. If you recognize that as a problem, if you want to sensitize the child, the student, and if you want to inculcate empathy and compassion in the student, then clearly pace is very important, and so we have to pace ourselves differently. If we are only going to go with the pace that is demanded of you, then there is no point in us sitting today and having this. We are having this discussion today. So again, we are actually doing something that is where we are trying to break the cycle, I think. So I think that it's up to us also. It's not just, we can't complain about the time, because especially you all are so young, so I think it's really up to you all to change how we look at time. We've run a lot, I think it's enough. There's no need to do any more running anymore. Now we can slow down a bit, I think. You wanted to say something?
We take online on Saturday. Sure, shout, please.
So when you are talking about sharing the multiple things, that can be done when somebody has given up their authoritative role themselves. So there's no space for authority in a safe space which you were talking about. But then, is it possible through that activity of listening to somebody, can someone like give up their own, like break their that authoritative shell?
I don't know, like whether you can, who is authoritative here?
So say if we talk in context of classroom,
Right.
teacher is an authoritative figure for students. Mostly it is like that. So but between students there is like no authoritative figure usually, so they are able to communicate with each other. But then how you were talking about a teacher being open with students, that would require a teacher to make their own authoritative shape.
Yeah, they must.
But then
They won't. That's true. But some will. I suppose some will. Most won't. So it's not a very happy situation. Mostly people won't.
Yeah. Okay. There's one observation and one question on the Zoom thing. I'm going to read it from here with the hope that your mic picks it up, and I don't, because otherwise I have been transcribing the questions as people have been speaking. So Alak Ray says that I am listening to your presentation from an area very close to Jadavpur University, so it should be very close to your home. From the song that you sang from IPTA to the Chernobyl cuckoo, is there a common thread that can also be found, learned and applied to say the current war in Ukraine or any other upheavals like the Bengal famine?
Oh my God, that's a very big question. I'll have to do another presentation for it, and even that won't cover. I don't know. I suppose the thread was there in what I said, and I don't think there is. I could actually talk about another thread now. I think the threads. I mean, at least I thought I was threading things as I was going along. So there was. I suppose the thread is one of displacement and danger, endangerment, and search for safety. I think those are the three common threads which run through all the stories that I was talking about. Yeah.
The other one is a comment from Karen Haydock, who says a remarkable talk and performance. It is important to record and share sounds and sights, but these days for us privileged people, too many times we just scroll through, see, listen, read, like, forward, scroll, scroll, scroll. It's not enough. We have to try harder to question, analyze, compare, understand, and work for the uncounted, change the world in better ways. It's just a comment.
Thank you.
Okay. I have one question really, well, question and a request also. So you said that when you listen to sounds, and so you can find something in them based on your background, on what you have listened on the road and throughout your life, and each of us perhaps have that. And of course, so this reminded me then of your song. Ami ja dekhi tumi ta dekho ki, ami ja shuni tumi ta shuno ki. So first, my request is if you can please sing a few lines of that song.
I would also say there are many requests.
And this is for those who have not heard this. This is one of my favorite songs of hers, and so I request. And then my question is that: so are you talking of the same thing here? That what I see, whether you see the same thing, what I listen to, what I hear, do you hear the same thing? This is a very crude translation of your wonderful words. But first, if you can sing and then.
Okay. Yeah, but it's not just about what I listen, do you hear what I hear? It's also about do I hear what you hear? It's both ways. Do I hear what you hear, and do you hear what I hear? And we don't. I hear something, you hear something. But the plurality of our listenings, the possibility of that plurality is what I was thinking about, of our listenings and our seeings, the plurality. And plurality is something that we are, this time is sort of forgetting, that the possibility of the plural. Because everything is becoming mono, lingual, religious, this, that, everything, we must all look the same, be the same, and so that's the kind of, not just in India, but across, everywhere. So I think that is what, I wrote this many years ago, but I think there were beginnings of ideas there. So, আমি যা দেখি তুমি তা দেখো কি, আমি যা ভাবি তুমি তা ভাবো কি, আমি যা শুনি তুমি তা শোনো কি, আহা 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 আহা, আমি যা দেখি তুমি তা দেখো কি. So not just দেখি, but also what I think and what I hear. অগুন্তি মাথা দেখে আমি বলি কালো তুমি বলো. So I see a swarm of heads and I say black, and you say দূরে দেখো চিল, see the kite in the sky, দেখো কালো ডানা চিল, see the black winged kite, দেখো কালো ডানা চিল, আকাশে ভাসে চিল, so the kite that floats in the sky. তুমি যা দেখো আমি তা দেখিনি, তুমি যা ভাবো আমি তা ভাবিনি, তুমি যা শোনো আমি তা শুনিনি, আহা 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 আহা, আমি যা দেখি তুমি তা দেখো কি. দেয়ালে স্লোগান দেখে আমি বলি লাল তুমি বলো. So you see slogans and you say red and I say থোকা থোকা রঙ্গন লাল, so the rangon flowers are red. দেখো কপালে টিপে রং লাল, থোকা থোকা রঙ্গন লাল, লাল আগুনের রং লাল, so agun is fire is red. দেখো কপালে টিপে রং লাল, বিকেল আকাশটাও লাল, So the evening sky is also red. So many reds, so many ways of seeing red. তুমি যা দেখো আমি তা দেখিনি, তুমি যা ভাবো আমি তা ভাবিনি. So in that there's the promise that or at least a pledge that I will try. Although I did not see what you saw and I did not hear what you heard, I will try. And I think that is the pledge. Yeah.
Like when you were writing, you wanted somebody to understand, like you wanted somebody to see the way you see. How did you come up with it?
I wanted you to listen to me now. That's why I wrote. I grew up near Assam. I grew up in Shillong.
Are there any other questions? Or yeah.
My question is again an extension to her question. So, what are you thinking? So, want to listen, like how you decided to take up this journey. So, you took us on the road, and through certain sounds, you made us connected, not just to those local realities, but connected to socio-political crisis like we have seen now. Everyone knows the detail about it. But then you were helping us connect it to the sounds which are around you, whether that be the street below your house or it being like going to Wales and even having the international trips along with you. So, what made you choose the medium of your communication? It could have been the other way. All of us know the detail of the things that you're trying to help us see. But we have heard it in different forms, through like loud lectures, lengthy ones. But you chose a very subtle way of communication, and that moved us more than any other talk I would say. And I hope everyone would agree on that. But what made you choose? Like, did you believe in this mode of communication, or
I don't think it was fixed. It formed itself. You see, it's amorphous. It takes its shape as I go along the journey. So it's not like I had decided that this is what I would do. Of course, I have worked as an artist, as a singer, as a songwriter, but also somebody who is deeply politically concerned about this time, as also someone who tries to be in resistance movements, in activism, rights, connects with children as a mother. So there's many ways, that that have shaped me or shaped this where I am standing now. It isn't like it was all decided from before. So it's something that slowly it's happened. And because you see, I think this is my way of performing. Actually, this is my performance. So because I have found the kind of performance that most of the times artists do. That is not my path. It's not for me to be on that road. It's not. I can't be on that road. I could, if I could, then I would be in a different place. But I chose this because I had no other choice. I was compelled to be like this. Because it's not for me to become a regularly touring performing artist with a band, traveling, singing the same songs over and over, making quite a lot of money. And all of those things, they were not, working through an agent. I don't know, so many things that people do, but it wasn't really for me to do those things. It wasn't my way. So because of that, and also because you see, I've not been able to be part of institutions or the industry. I find that difficult as well. So I've had to make certain choices, and the choices also meant that I had to give up certain things. The comfort of certain, certain material comforts and securities, etc. Those are not also part of my life. But I don't mind that. It's all right. I've been good so far, and I'm well looked after by all of you. So it's all right. It works for me. But it's not something that I had decided from before. I am surprised that I'm standing here now. It's shaped slowly, you know. There's something organic to it, and also something unknown. Before that, I think he wanted to ask something.
Yeah, I don't know if we will do this properly, but again, I want to ask you how do you think or what do you think about this? See, before the pandemic started, since we are talking about sounds of the streets or sounds around us, the sounds were very different. The minute there was this lockdown, the sounds changed. I mean, rather, there was no sound. Some people say that it was deafening. Some people say that it gave them time to think and reflect, and silence sometimes give you more answers than chaos now. So, what do you think about this?
Well, I had hoped it would make people think, but I don't think it made people think. I had hoped. I had really hoped, you know, at least would make people take a step back and think. But we were just dying to go back to where we were. And I think, so I don't think, some must have thought, and some also found products to make which would sell better in these times of crisis. So also the people cashed in on other people's insecurities and fears. So that kind of thinking people did very well. But other than that, to really think, step back, think about what it means to be not so noisy, what it means to be. And sound is not just sound, because sound signifies something else. It's a way of life, and we were dying to go back to that way of life. And I suppose it's normal for us. It's too scary not to go back to that life, I think, you know. So that's what we've done. At least to my mind, that's how I've seen that. The absence of planes in the sky, my God, that was so scary, you know. But then you could see more stars. So, but we still wanted the planes to come back to our lives, I think. Yeah. No? Sure.
So, this sound of water which you said, for which you meant to waves.
Yeah.
So that, like, what I understood is, like, in that you want to picturize the walk of the dam, the water that was creating on the environment. Like when you suddenly said sound of water, I was thinking how the sound of a waterfall will be like, what will the sound of a sea will be like. So I imagine such a manner. So yeah, this is not a question. This is
But sounds, we were recording, there's a Welsh poet with whom I was traveling, and then she came to India, and then we went traveling along the Teesta. So we went along the Teesta, right from Sikkim we went down, and we were again looking at a dammed river, and how the sound changes, and what the memory of sound is for the people who remember the undammed river, and then, you know, the pre-dammed river, and then how that sound changes, and all of that, you know. So we were recording all of those things. So we built a whole collection of sounds of different kinds of water. And Sophie, my friend, she works with also these microphones which work underwater. So she records the sounds of water. And actually, there was a nuclear power plant very near on the ocean where we went in Wales. And so this is a French commission. And so this power plant that has been decommissioned now, but still it takes a long time for the whole process to kind of end. And so there are so the environment and the changes to the environment and all of that. So we were recording all those things, so different aspects. And so the dam was one story that we were recording.
Thank you. I would request Madam to
Yeah,
say
I
a few
think we
words.
can continue the discussions.
Yeah, we have
Over to you.
after that. But after Madam speaks, if you, it's my request that we should end it on a musical note. So if you can sing a couple of lines from any song of your choice, or I can choose one for you,
Yeah,
which
tell
is
me.
which is of course one of your most famous songs, Ekhano Golpo Lekho. If you can
Okay.
sing a few lines of that to end with, but after Madam speaks. Yeah.
Okay, now
We should end on a musical note.
Okay, I was actually going to ask her that so far she has definitely, I don't know if you've come to Mumbai before, but even on this trip, you may have come before, but post-lockdown, Mumbai, whatever, you have traveled from the road from the airport to TIFR certainly, and today from TIFR to HBCSE. And I was going to ask you, these journeys in Mumbai, what song does it bring to you? You know, the song of these roads that you've seen, what is the song that these roads have told you? But anyway, you can also sing whatever Annesh has said. But let me say thank you. Just thank you. This has been our first in-person Thursday talk after 2 years almost, right? And thank you so much. It was refreshingly different is what I would say than the lectures we are used to. It was thought-provoking. It was, really, we listened, is what I would say. And hopefully we've learned how to listen some more. So thank you, and I hope we'll all go back feeling a little bit charged up with the fact that we need to keep our eyes and ears open to what's happening around us. So thanks again. Let's continue over tea, of course. There's chai outside or high tea or whatever it is. But before that, I think we should end on a musical note. I think all of us agree on that.
So you told me what song. Yeah. So I wrote a song quite recently, and it comes out of a line that I work with some musician friends for the last 20 years. We've been working. They're in London, so because I have a base there, I live there, and so my friend Ollie Weeks, he's a composer. He's very good, multi-instrumentalist, and he has a little boy who's 7 now. And now Ali said that his son has been writing songs. So he said this. So he sent me a recording of this one line. It's a one-line song, which goes, "The wind is calling for the day. The wind is calling for the day. The wind is calling for the day. The wind is calling for the day." It goes like that. Then he says, "That's all, Daddy." And then so what's this song called? Oh, it's called "The Wind is Calling for the Day." So then I said, that's a beautiful line, and I'm stealing it from Rolster. So I stole the line, and within half an hour, something inspired me to write the song, and I recorded the song and sent it to Ollie. Ollie said, "This is quick work," so. It's called Batash Tomai Dakche Dekho. Batash Tomai Dakche Dekho, Tomar Chokhe Shopno Rakho, Gacher Pata Thor Thoriye Kape. সকাল হবে বলে গেছে তোমার কাছে আমার কাছে সেসব কথা জমাই বুকের তাপে সেসব কথা জমাই বুকের তাপে। সকাল হবে, সকাল হবে, আলোর ছটা ছড়িয়ে যাবে, এমন সকাল আসছে না তো কেন? ওই যে ভাবি ভোরের পাখি সঙ্গোপনে তোমায় আঁকি, তোমায় আমি ডেকে নেব যেন। ওই যে ভাবি ভোরের পাখি সঙ্গোপনে তোমায় আঁকি, তোমায় আমি ডেকে নেব যেন। বাতাস তোমায় ডাকছে দেখো, তোমার চোখে স্বপ্ন রাখো, গাছের পাতা থর থরিয়ে কাঁপে। সকাল হবে বলে গেছে তোমার কাছে আমার কাছে, সেসব কথা জমাই বুকের তাপে। সেসব কথা জমাই বুকের তাপে। Thank you. Shall I leave the meeting?
Yeah, let's take this in the stream. By the way, tomorrow